This is a bit of a controversial opinion. There's no such thing as a historical longsword. We know that longsword was a term used in the medieval period, but it probably wasn't used the way we use it today. Today, we use it to refer to fencing with two-handed swords, for instance, using things like federschwert. However, once upon a time, it just meant a sword that was longer than the usual sword. This single-handed arming sword that has a particularly long blade is probably what they were referring to when they said, "there's a long sword." And when you're dealing with antiques, the problem becomes very complex. Not all of them are very easy to distinguish just based on size. When Ewart Oakeshott was describing his typology for medieval swords, he made a point of looking at the blades and the different shapes of the blades, and sometimes he distinguishes the different size of the hilts that you can find associated with the blades. What he did not do is break down all the swords into either single-handed use or double-handed use, because it is not always apparent how that works. For instance, is this very large and heavy great sword of war from the 13th century a longsword in the same way that we see the 14th and 15th century much more nimble swords were that were being used by the fencing masters of the time? Very hard to say. So while it's a useful term now to describe longsword fencing as everyone practices, for instance, in HEMA, when we're talking about historical swords, longsword is at best an ambiguous term.